We'll call this Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Thank you. Would you do the roll call, Paul?
Megan? Here. Brian? Brooks?
Here.
Rob? Here. Alyssa? Here. Michael? And Barb?
Here. Okay, we've got a quorum, so we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Any changes or also entertain a motion?
Could I request to move those to discussion,
To where?
both 1 and 2? I just have a couple of questions on the consent calendar. Oh, sorry,
Oh.
consent calendar.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So what do we need to do with them? Just not have them on the consent calendar. Just talk about them at that point. Then.
It would move in place of 7 and 8 respectively.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. So we've got a request for a change on the consent calendar. So do we have a motion? Okay. Motion is seconded to amend the agenda. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, so then we can just jump to approval of the minutes then? Okay. Any corrections on the minutes?
There's one sentence in here that has no verb, it's not a complete sentence. Under public hearing to consider the conditional use application for 2300 to 2428 East Christensen Street. It says Russell Atkins, State 304 South Earl Circle, partner in Christensen Developments, partners, developer for Aspen Ridge, period. Shouldn't have been like, was present for
If you're
discussion.
willing to turn on your microphone, speak that into the microphone.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you want me to repeat that? The one sentence in the one paragraph, it's only a partial sentence. Names the person and then should it continue on to say was present for discussion? Typically, yeah. So I make that change and then move to approve as amended.
So which person? So she can pick it up. Russell
Okay,
Atkins?
Yeah, Russell
Okay.
Atkins.
Yeah. Okay.
Just says he's part,
Yeah.
just says his title, but it doesn't say
Yeah.
anything else.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else?
No,
Okay. Okay. I'll take a motion then.
I move to approve as amended.
Second, no.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thanks. Okay.
Yep.
Moving on. So, at this point we have time for public comments. If you're here in regards to a particular issue, you can wait and discuss it with us at that time, or if you just have something in general you'd like to visit with us about, you're welcome to come up to the lectern. Do we have anybody for public comments? All right, moving on, we'll go to conditional use application for East Christensen Street. Andrew? Patrick. Why do I always call you Andrew? Sorry.
So this was continued from the last meeting. You had a redesign suggestion based on how streets would flow. So the applicant is back to, he has submitted, early in your packet, starting on page 13, was the original submission. Then if you go further down into the packet, there is a whole lot of documents by DGR. In there is a revised plan, and he will go through it, and I'll try to find the right one. All right.
Hello, Russell Atkins with Christensen Development Partners. We presented a conditional use permit at the last commission hearing. We heard the comments and decided to table that request till this meeting. What we did in the meantime is went and kind of reevaluated the site plan as an overall. To make a very long story very short, we moved all of the private roads to internal as requested.
I like what you did. Thank you.
Good. I'm actually happier with the layout. I'll be honest. I think the neighborhood would look a little bit better by not having all of those garages there along East Christensen. So
think it'll be more of a neighborhood feel that way as well.
Agreed.
And then there's one driveway out to Christensen for the whole, is that what that
There's
is?
one access point there
Yeah.
at Christensen that lines up,
That thing right there?
but there are two then out to Chestnut Boulevard.
Oh, out here.
Yes.
Yep, okay, I see, thank you.
Tammy, where is the, if I remember correctly, there's an access also onto Chestnut for track 2. Where does that fall? Just to the
Velco.
north of this. Yeah, how close is it to that north entrance onto Chestnut? I assume it's probably in the middle, but I'm not.
If you scroll down a couple pages, is it going to be the same opening that they're already using? That one? Or is that track 1? No, or track 2, yeah. They have a little,
I imagine it would be somewhere right in the middle, just because you'd have the apartments on each side of it, so it.
And that's where the
probably
water
is-
service connects in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
So that's the main road there.
good catch, okay.
So tonight, we're, being asked to approve the conditional use application.
Yes, the
As
conditional
amended.
use is for 5+ multifamily with the expectation that once the ordinance is changed to allow single-family attached 5+, that's really kind of what they're going for. This conditional use permit would allow them to do foundations and get started. It's, I believe so.
Yeah, it's calling back to our discussion last meeting. I do like this, that it takes, I think, a lot of pressure off that Christensen and Chestnut intersection without all those driveways and, you know, without that discussion that we had, I recognized even last time that this use of these single-family attached in this area is a good transition back from what you have near the highway with the
Correct.
business and then the larger apartment buildings and then these single-family attached and then across the Christensen moving to the single-family detached. So it's a good progression of building scale.
Good.
I'll make a motion to approve. Heidbrink?
Bassett, I'll second.
We got a motion and a second to approve the conditional use for East Christensen Street. Any more comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Russ, thank you for working with us on that.
Of
Appreciate
course.
it very much.
I also think there's a consent item that you put down into discussion.
Oh. Okay, so we want to do that now?
Yeah, we should probably do the consent.
Oh, you're on it. Okay, sure. Which one is it? The Aspen Ridge Edition one? Right? Okay. So you had some questions?
Yeah, I just had a question on, so it's page 5, it's on the packet. It's for that public area along the railroad. So if I remember correctly on the initial plan, that tract 5 was a public park. Is that still the plan? Is that still the intent?
It is, and they should all be together.
No, tract 5 will be platted separately.
Okay,
The plat is separate for the park.
but the idea is, you know, we're platting these areas as well as the park and then donating them to the city.
The only reason I asked the question is I was just concerned about access to that public area. And I was just wondering why that tract 5 and the one
track 6 also will meet up with right-of-way at the south end of East Christensen Street. It abuts that right-of-way. It's just the right-of-way's not platted yet. It will be in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was just, so track 5, that's that rectangular piece.
Yep.
I was just curious why that was separate from what's in here.
We want to keep parks separate, tracks, than drainage areas.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, we've been doing that all over town, so
okay.
Yep.
But they'll both eventually be city property,
they
right?
will be. Like the park, they need to finish the park before they can dedicate it to the city, but the drainage area really isn't changing very much. They're still not gonna dedicate it right away, but in the near future,
Okay.
once their improvements are done.
I was just mostly concerned about access to that, since it will be public property. Okay,
And I do think there's a pedestrian trail that comes from the east to the
off
park
of,
as well.
off of Haley Avenue? Is that
There's
it?
two access points, one off Haley, one off of.
Okay, I didn't know if that
Well,
was,
you're right.
if that was drainage there, or if that was access, or. I guess with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we got a motion to approve that, I don't know if we call it the consent calendar anymore, but that item. Is there a second?
Second, no.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? All right, we've got that taken care of. Thanks, Russ. Yeah, should we just do the other item on the consent calendar? Okay. So go ahead, Brian. I think you had a question.
Yeah, so the next one, this is the area just east of Huset's, between Huset's and the river. Is the intent, is Huset's going to absorb this? Is that what's happening here?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep, I'm assuming that they're going to extend their camping and parking lot.
okay. The reason I wanted to bring it to discussion was just, that was an assumption. I didn't want to move forward with just an assumption, but the access, isn't shown all the way to a right-of-way.
So I made them put in that mutual access easement, which is shown at the bottom of track 2. They have that kind of highlighted in, and they did file those exhibits at the county.
Okay.
And then I also had the state sign off on the plat as it actually is a state highway, so.
Okay. I just didn't know how that mutual access continued, because that gets pretty steep over there.
Yeah, it's just
But
shown
if
on this
if
plat
Huset's is
pretty much
buying
for
it, it's not gonna
information.
matter. So, okay.
Yep.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve, a second. Okay, motion a second, all in favor? Opposed? All right, we've got that taken care of. Okay. Then we're going down to new business, correct? Andrew? Patrick? Whoever, sorry. Boy, all right, Hazelnut Street.
So I don't think Nick is here. I talked to him earlier, so he was aware. But they are looking to do a bunch of townhouses up north of what is now the Berkman East Side Elementary School. So this is kind of their layout. This is in your packet as well. It's not on the packet, but on your desktop in the folder. So this is kind of their plan. They are requesting the townhouses. And there's a number on there. It's the conditional use number, because there is a. They would like many of them. I think the number is somewhat undefined, but that's kind of the layout they are looking at. They are seeking the 36 or more of their conditional use designations in the R3 district.
So are these one story?
It sounded like they were gonna be 2 stories, so kind of that garage with the stairs going up above them. So they kind of have that living space on the main floor and then bedrooms on the top floor. But I don't know that they figured out all of that yet.
So it's a townhome concept. So each unit is 2 stories, though,
Right,
Not-
yep,
not one unit and then another unit just for confirmation, the new school is just south of this property, correct?
Correct. If on there, it would be what's kind of the more yellow area.
And the access to that is on, it would be Sunshine Avenue and then to the east end of this, correct?
Correct.
Rather than me digging through all the drawings, how are they handling trash?
I think it briefly came up in discussion I had with Nick.
He doesn't have a full site plan put together yet.
I think they're
There's
gonna be trash enclosures,
Okay.
I think, for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of drawings here. J2? Oh, keynote 3 there? Yeah, keynote 4 is a fence, keynote 3 is the pavement, so yeah, I guess I'd assume that must be a trash enclosure, okay. So it is screened,
And there's a mirror image on the other side.
and it looks like there's some in the middle too, on J3. What's the zoning to the north of this? Is that R2? You know, by chance? In their concept plan anyway, I don't think we've approved anything yet, or I don't think we've approved any plats yet.
So there was a minor plat that was approved and their zoning has been approved.
It is R2 to the north.
It is, okay, thank you. Because I think we require, if it abuts R1, it would require a fence, right?
That sounds right. We would make sure all that is taken care of at the site plan stage. We'd go through the list.
How many total units is this? I know they said more than 36, but
So 160, when we talked to him about the application, he didn't want to state a definitive number just because it might change one or two depending on what he needs to make costs work.
questions?
Does anybody have more questions on this?
So just to clarify, so the permitted use is up to 36 dwelling units and the conditional use for above 36. And that's the reason this is applicable. It's not per building, it's for the lot, right?
Correct. This
Total.
will all be, as of right now, one lot.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address this issue?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve as submitted. Any other discussion on this? So this is just the initial stage.
Yes, this is just a conditional use permit. He'll have to come back for site plans and everything else. If any other conditional use permits or variances or anything else are needed, he'll be back.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, going on to, we're going on to the honeysuckle one, is that next?
Correct.
Okay.
So, on the paper in front of you, this application was signed off by the landowner as well, that's Lee Skelling. So, that one does reflect his signature on it. And there were a public comments letter received that is also in front of you. There are a couple of copies in the back of the room as well.
So is there anyone here that would like to address this issue on the honeysuckle? Okay, come on up. And if you push that red button there, or that little button.
That one.
And then if you state your name and address, please.
Okay, John Sternick, 26280 South McCarty Road, Brandon. Okay. And I also have property in the Brandon Industrial Park. And one of the things that I found out that concerns me is that I don't want to be in a situation where I have to pay higher insurance rates or I have other things that are happening to the property that I have just opposed to the one that you're talking about. I think everything's expressed in the letter, and those are my concerns. I have nothing against the business, don't get me wrong, okay?
Just for the commission, if you start on page 77 of your packet, that's where it starts the requirement to get a conditional use permit for a cannabis establishment. And then going further down, it talks about general operation obligations of the licensee, the things they have to do. Can't employ a person with a disqualifying felony offense under 21. You can't partake in the use of the product on site. There's all sorts of things in there. So there are some underlying requirements that would be in place aside from the conditional use permit. If you wanted to impose additional land use, health, safety, welfare measures, I would recommend that they stack on this rather than reduce what's in there. But so there are some baseline requirements already in place.
Is there security addressed in there?
I do have one comment. So I don't remember exactly what section in 17, but our ordinance does require, and I think there's a word that maybe needs to be changed in here. I don't remember exactly where it's at, but the product or paraphernalia is not supposed to be visible from the public. And I think in our ordinance, it actually says shall be visible. So I think there's a word change that needs to happen in there. But I think the intent is that it's not visible. But in the submittal packet, I don't know which of those units. So let's go to page, well, there's a lot of pages here today.
So on page 55, it would be the right side unit,
Okay.
the one that's more built up.
Yeah, anyway, all three of them do have exterior windows.
I think so. It's been a little bit since I've been up there. I know they have an exterior door. There is a larger door, but I think I don't remember when I went on the bus tour part of it.
Yeah, so on page 56, it looks like there's three windows on the top there. Here again, with without knowing what's going on in each of those spaces. The ordinance does say that, cannabis and or paraphernalia is not to be visible, to the public, basically to the exterior. So that's one concern that I do have.
Do we have someone here from, come on up. Maybe you can address his question. Thank you, sir, we'll keep you on hold. You can sit down, but if you give us your name and address, please.
My name's Brian Rubin, 812 Pine Street here in town. Yeah, I can go over this plan. This is our family business we're trying to put up here. So, if you look on the drawing there, it's the right side, just that third of the building. There are windows in the building, but they're 20 feet in the air. And, there is a loft in one part, but that's just office area. So there's no cannabis up in that area. And then down below, there's nothing on, like I said, the windows are at 20 feet in the air, so there's no way to see inside or anything going on. Sure, that's, on the back end of the building, which would be the top left picture. Yep, that's where the cannabis is, and those lower windows are not there. And the door is solid. There's no window in the door either.
So you plan to grow it?
No.
No.
Well, so our business is that we decontaminate cannabis. So it's a process of taking organic elements out, like yeast and mold. We have a machine that will kill that. So we're making the cannabis safer for everybody is what the whole point of our business is. But we have to have a cultivation license through the state to do this part of our business. So we have to go through all the cultivation rules and laws and all that, even though we're not growing. And yeah, we have plenty of safety in the building. We have several, cameras. If you look at the state requirements, there's a lot. So there's plenty of safety and security with all the product inside.
So it will come to your facility from someplace else?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep.
And then you'll.
Yep, we have a gated in enclosure in the back. There's a card access to open a rolling gate. Customers will come to the back, so, nothing's visible. Nobody sees anything going on. It's all kind of hidden and out of sight.
That would be on which side of the building?
It'd be the south.
Okay.
The south. So if you're looking at that picture there, the unit to the right would be on the south end. Oh, furthest away from the street.
So Patrick, I did find it, it's on page 79, item J.
Okay.
That cannabis or related paraphernalia shall be displayed or kept in a business so as to be visible from outside the cannabis establishment.
Yeah, we won't be following that rule, no.
I'll mention it to the city administrator. We'll see if we can get it rolling.
So we might want to do a little cleanup on that.
And just as a practical matter, the other cannabis facilities in the city of Brandon, when Alcon, if there's a building official to do a final, we always have a police officer, someone from the police department come with us to go their protocol as well for security.
So I think maybe just to address some concerns, especially in the letter that we received here. I think, we do probably owe some dialogue on this. So unless you're a dispensary, there's really no public coming to,
No dispensary, no public.
right? So there will be no public, so there's not gonna be loitering, there's not gonna be people coming and going.
Correct, yep.
There's,
Our cannabis establishments, we don't want people to know where we're at, so we're not advertised. There's no signage on the building.
Right.
There's no anything like that.
yeah, and the signage portion of our ordinances do indicate that you can't say the word cannabis, you can't say the word marijuana. marijuana.
Correct,
You
yeah,
can't
we don't
show
wanna do
an
that
image of
anyway.
it, So
Yep.
nobody's gonna know actually what's going on in there, unless they're in the know.
Correct.
Who
So
are,
to address, maybe to address some of the fire issues, that's a building code issue. That's not necessarily up to this board to review and police that. So, based on the occupancy, based on the use, the building will have to be, protected, fire rated, sprinkled, emergency egress points. So in my mind.
We've had a
too-
few meetings with Paul about those kind of things
Yeah,
already,
so I just want to address these issues that we're not overlooking them.
Sure.
Because it is brought to us, I want to make sure that we're discussing it here openly. So I don't know if this facility would be any more or any less safe, both internally and externally to the neighbors than any other type of business within HI occupancy where you've got solvents and chemicals and equipment.
Yep, we don't have any of that stuff.
Right. And then there's some commentary in here about lack of documentation. Here again, not everything has to be presented today. A lot of this stuff has to be followed up with later
Correct.
when getting the license. So I guess those are just some of my comments related to this letter that we've received.
I'm recalling some of the discussions in previous cases where a business in this realm has been proposed or discussed for the city of Brandon, and I recall, I know the state, like you mentioned this, the state licensing and the state regulation is quite specific and interesting with what you're proposing, that because I remember that, like you said, cameras, like with the state, that in a grow facility, like every seed has to be cataloged and tracked, and waste product has to be handled in a very specific way. So some of that would come into play for you potentially.
A little bit, not specifically those two things. We don't have
Yeah.
seeds because we're not growing.
Yep.
And, we don't have any waste product.
And then whatever product is produced or
Right, whatever they bring us, we treat it and we send it back to them in the same exact form that it comes to us in.
and that, I'm assuming too, that, as I remember, that product that is exported out or however you want to term it, that's also very regulated, that it
Yeah,
has to be
manifested by the
secured
state,
and
yep.
manifested and, yep.
Yep.
So those items would apply to your business just as.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir.
did you,
Right.
s-
Where do we stand? We're allowed, or I'm not saying we're allowed, we allow, sorry, 3 dispensaries and up to 10 other facilities, correct?
Yeah,
Either
cultivators or
cultivation.
manufacturing.
That sounds right, it says that in there. As far as I know, we're not really close to those numbers.
You're not,
There
there's
was
only,
the initial push, but then some people realized it wasn't for them, it wasn't quite the moneymaker or whatever, so the market.
yeah, I believe there's 4 cultivators in the city,
Okay, how many dispensaries?
or 3 maybe, 1.
Just one?
Yeah.
Or the herb.
did you say you have other locations of this?
No.
This
Nope. This is our only one. Right now, we're operating inside Dakota Herb with them as a kind of a partnership, and we're bringing it into our own building for.
So I'm
Yes.
not winking at you. I had
That's okay.
eye
That's all right.
surgery yesterday.
I guess, my question is sharing a building with somebody under the general operation obligations, letter K has, have written policies and plans detailing odor control.
The building is ours completely.
Okay, well,
Yeah, we're keeping, it's just storage for us.
okay,
it-
but
it
I mean, I know there's neighbors, other properties by you do have like this
Correct, yep.
document that says written policies, procedures for your odor control.
Not specifically in this, as a finished product, it doesn't have the odor that it does during the growing stages and the cultivating stages. That's where the odor comes into play.
Okay, well, I guess I still feel like there's still gonna be an odor.
Sure. Inside the building there would be, it's not gonna extrude or past the building though. And we have filtration systems in like the AC units and that kind of stuff, just to filter the air more than normal.
Would you have some more questions for us or for the gentleman while you're here?
The only thing I have to say is that I'm basically interested in protecting my assets, right? The gentleman over here can, whatever he wants, I'm okay with that. It's just I don't want to have a burden of having something happen. And then, all of a sudden, my insurance goes up, I can't, lease the building that's next door or something like that. Okay? So I need some reassurances, that's basically it.
We haven't had any issues with any of these in town, have we? Like, not specifically yours, but just any of them. I mean, as in like security reasons that we know of.
Not security reasons, we had one burn to the ground, but not security that I know of. Have you heard of them?
I have not, but Chief Staple would probably be the best person to answer that question.
There's a, I don't know what they do at that one. Isn't there one just down the street from this? Or there was gonna be one, or maybe they never did anything. On the other side, by like Lacey's, across the street from that. Thought they were gonna. Is there? I don't know if they're still running or not, but that's what you don't even notice they're there.
Just the cultivator.
Yeah.
There have been complaints about odor before, but they were growing facilities. I don't know what this entails.
Good. Like all this stuff is new to every city in South Dakota, obviously. So it's kind of, I don't know, new for everybody. The grounds are going on, so, and we're learning as we go with all this stuff. It seems like, because we haven't had them before. So
I assume the issue where there was an odor, they were notified and required to correct it then.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
So, Patrick, what are our options here? So we can approve the conditional use, we can approve it with additional conditions, we can deny it. Those are our options?
Or you can continue it to another meeting if you needed more information. There are several options. The one thing to consider is if you deny the same or substantially the same application, couldn't be resubmitted for 6 months. There is a right to appeal. Should it be denied, the applicant could appeal, or if it is approved, any other person aggrieved by the decision could be city council within 5 working days.
But by law, we have to allow this, just like we have to allow some things that we don't like.
It depends what you mean by allowed. You would make the decision
Somewhere
whether
within the city. I mean, we can't say you're not allowed to do this in our city.
you could make a land use decision whether it. Sometimes there are things that are probably wrong based on the location, but it had to have some kind of health safety.
And so when we addressed this, we said heavy industrial was an appropriate location for this.
So, yeah, so this kind of thing is allowed in this zoning within our ordinance, right?
Correct. It is a listed conditional use.
Yes, but my understanding is, Brian, you're correct, that we can't just say, no, we don't want any of this in our city anyplace. So this was our way to try to regulate it to some extent. Okay, do we have more questions for our applicant?
Is the, what's the status of the state licensing? Have you gone through that in the past?
No,
Because of what you
no, we
already
were
do?
waiting for all this. We're just going down the line in order that we need to go in.
So that'll be, okay, and that'll
Yeah.
be applicable to this property that's being discussed here when that is
Yes, sir.
done, so I would.
Does this, I don't know, I'm asking, does the state come and look at
Oh, yeah.
stuff, do they? Yeah,
Absolutely.
I
Yep.
just asked, I didn't know if it was just the city that did it, but the state
No,
does
state
come.
does also, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, lots of them, yep.
Are we approving or recommending? I mean, are we making a decision or recommending a decision?
It is a conditional use permit, so you would be making a decision unless it is appealed.
And if we were to approve this conditional use, then if for some reason the licensing with the state wasn't fulfilled, that would prohibit, I mean, that's,
The conditional use permit would just expire then if nothing happened. Like it's a year, if nothing happens, it would expire.
I'll make a motion to approve as submitted. Hey, Brink?
I'll second the motion, no.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve the conditional use, permit. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let's do a roll call, please, Paul.
Nay.
Brian,
Aye.
Brooks,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Alyssa.
All right, the conditional use passes, so good luck to you.
Thank you.
So there is a right to appeal, as I mentioned earlier. It's outlined in section 1522-2, roughly page 138 of the zoning ordinance. If any person aggrieved by the decision of the planning and zoning needs to file a written appeal with myself within 5 working days of today's decision. So that's roughly probably next Friday. So
So you have the right to appeal.
we just need a written statement that you want to do so.
Okay. Both of you for attending. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to the rezone on Redwood.
Sure Foundation Lutheran Church, currently zoned neighborhood business. Most of you remember the whole process. They are looking to rezone to the institutional district, and we do have someone from the church here to discuss.
Okay, come on up. Again, if you give us your name and address, please. And then just tell us what you're doing.
Craig Wilkie, the pastor at Sure Foundation. I'm 1625 West Bennett Drive, Brandon, here. Our desire was to rezone to institutional because it was our understanding that under the current zoning designation that we couldn't put up a structure like a small shed or something like that for mowing the lawn or storing land upkeep sort of items. So that's kind of the primary purpose at the current moment. I think any future sort of use with the property or any future expansion would also be hindered under the current zoning designation, and institutional would allow more flexibility in that regard.
I see you've started construction.
We did,
Pretty
yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. Hoping to get it enclosed before the winter comes.
So the church owns this parcel that we're seeing on page 87 and the parcel to the south, correct?
It's all one parcel. It's a different church than the one to the
Celebrate
south.
United Methodist.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So this is a new church.
Yep.
going
We
in here.
we currently worship in the Brandon Golf Course.
Mike, I have some concerns with this. That we're putting up a secondary structure before a primary structure.
The primary structure is in process of being
Okay,
constructed.
sorry, I don't get to that part of town, so I'm sorry. I didn't, so there is some other construction going on. Sorry, there's very limited information here, so you're building a church and you now want to add a accessory structure.
Yeah, there's no
Okay.
written plans for that at this moment, but when we're thinking about how to keep up the property, we don't have a place right now where we can store any of that.
And I think if
That
I'm,
makes sense now.
yeah,
Okay.
if I'm correct, we've been rezoning churches and government buildings to institutional since we have that new designation, correct?
So the city's been rezoning its properties. If a church would want to rezone to it, we obviously wouldn't make them, but if they felt it would be beneficial to do so, they would certainly apply for it. Yep.
Yeah, it's only been going for 2 months, so.
This Wisconsin Synod Lutheran, isn't it?
Correct. We're just getting all the Lutherans in town here.
It's a lot of Lutheran. Do we have any other, I remember when we were, formulating the industrial, the institutional, zoning, that we intended that churches would be eligible to be in it. Did any churches so far, before this one, take advantage of that?
Schools have.
School
I'm not
did?
sure if churches have yet.
We'll be the trailblazers.
And this would just be a recommendation to city council, they have the
Yeah.
final vote.
Cause it's a zoning.
I assume this meets the minimum size requirement.
Look, but I would imagine so. It's a pretty big lot. Is that 4 acres ish?
Yeah, 3.6.
I think the minimum is half.
qualifies.
That's your decision to make.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address this issue? Okay. All right, any other questions for Pastor?
I will move to recommend a do pass to the city council.
I'd bring second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to recommend rezoning to institutional. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thanks for coming, Pastor.
Thank you.
Good luck for you. Good luck to you. Okay, now we've got a rezone for Split Rock Boulevard.
Yep, 1001 North Split Rock. This is the property just south across on the other side of Ash from Coffee Cup. It was a medical marijuana dispensary. That's the one that was cited earlier that burned down. The building was demolished. There is a concrete slab on the property. It is currently zoned HI. The applicant is seeking to rezone it to general business.
You know the drill. You've been here all night.
We kind of feel like that'd be a better appropriate use for the property, considering 3 of the 4 corners are general business. I think it's my understanding that the city of Brandon would prefer Split Rock to be general business.
Could you give us your name and address, please?
Trevor Kane, 1007 9th Avenue, North Brandon.
Okay, great, thank you.
So in your online folder, I did put the comp plan in there if you wanted to look at the future land use map. Generally, kind of long-term plans as a general concept, it probably makes sense for Split Rock and Holly to be as commercial as we can get them.
We felt the same way, or I feel the same way.
And I'm thinking back prior to the most recent establishment that had the issue with the fire, that's probably closer to what that operated as. Before that, it was an antique shop, I think, before, and so, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I make just a few comments on this? I agree that on paper, it looks really good as a general business lot. There are a lot of uses within general business that I have concerns about working at this location. So, as a couple examples, stormwater, when it is heavy industrial, it needs to be designed at that 2 to 5 year flow. When you move it to general business, depending on the type of what's going to be put in there, there is a much higher requirement for stormwater. We have very limited stormwater infrastructure here because this is an industrial park. And so with the size of the lot, I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I'm saying that there's probably going to be a lot of discussions within the site plan and the engineering that would make it a little bit unfeasible. There is also the access location. So when we have an access location that is near an intersection, especially with an arterial road like Split Rock, we require that they have 300 feet. Well, this lot isn't 300 feet along Ash, it's only 200 feet. And so there would be additional requirements there. Some of those could be handled under general business, but there's also areas that would not be. So say you're putting a Burger King there, that's not gonna meet that access requirement. And it's gonna be pretty hard to make that work. Whether it's we put in a median on Ash and we have a right in, right out, there's just some restrictions. So I would like the board to take that into consideration, that a general business is not a very appropriate zoning for this lot. I'm not saying that it couldn't work, I'm just saying it would take a lot more work. Correct.
Why does that matter?
Why does it matter what the use is?
Yeah,
For how many vehicles that would be coming into
but the
that?
access point is still gonna be the same, wouldn't
No,
it?
it would not be the same. at least we would be able to justify moving it less than that 300 feet.
We-
So say it's like.
But I
a-
don't have 300 feet, so whether you have general business or industrial, I have to have an access to the
That's
property.
what I'm saying. yeah.
Whether it's a body shop or a Burger King, I need access.
So if you have like a body shop, you're gonna have vehicles kind of coming and going, but they're not coming and going all at the same time. Whereas if you have a Burger King, you're gonna have everybody coming at the same time, and there's going to be far more vehicles than there would be if it's gonna be a body shop.
So
I'm gonna,
so you're saying they wouldn't have access to their lot?
I'm saying that would be very.
You can't take away access to a lot that they own.
Correct.
To a public road.
So
But
if you
if-
had a
okay.
heavy industrial
So-
spot there and you had a semi backing in, that
Exactly.
would be better.
I'd be more happy with personal vehicles than tractor trailers going in and out of that.
So let's use just stormwater as an example. If they can't meet their requirements, they're still not allowed to just flood their neighbor. They still have to meet that requirement somehow.
I
They're not.
acknowledge
Well, every-
if they-
that.
But every,
However, we
Every-
haven't even drawn a site plan. Sorry.
So say if you do have a Burger King, they still have to meet those requirements. So it would include having some kind of a traffic analysis done. They're gonna have to do a traffic impact study, and I'm gonna assume that they're gonna have to put in some kind of a median along Ash Street, which obviously everybody's going to have a strong opinion on.
I acknowledge the fact that we will have to work with the city on some of these issues. However, when we lock down maybe a permanent tenant, we can address that with a site plan and engineering plans. Would you agree, sir?
My name's Carter Roberts. I'm with Norman Engineering. Yeah, just here tonight, just for the rezone of the land. We don't have a site plan drawn or anything. And we've done several projects in Brandon in the past and working with Paul and Tammy. But at this point, it's just the land use that we're looking at, so.
I'm still gonna take a very strong stance and ask that you do not rezone this to general business, because I don't think that they're gonna be able to make it work. I have also discussed this with the DOT. They agree that it's not a good idea to put this as general business.
we have general business right across the street from it.
Yes,
We
without
have
access.
smaller,
right.
we have smaller general business lots. Dairy Queen, for example,
That
their
runs,
access is on Split Rock,
that runs through another parking lot.
but their access is on
They
Split
have,
Rock.
they have
This one's
enough
not on
loading
Split Rock.
spaces to address them. And I would just point out that there has been a corridor study along Split Rock. There will be a median along Split Rock when they replace Split Rock, as well as Holly. So their access will get restricted in the future.
So, sir, you own the property now, or you're just you own the property now?
I own it.
You own it, okay.
I unfortunately was the guy that had the building burned.
Okay, so you have the the concrete, okay.
I sure
Okay.
do.
Okay, so what you're looking for is you wanna develop it, obviously.
We would like to do something
Yeah.
with it, other than a big steel building.
Okay, so you would like to develop it and get it into general business rather than the heavy industrial where it's zoned now, okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. So,
Um,
when we look at that rezoning, do we just look at as rezoning if that makes sense in that part of town? Or do we actually look at what could potentially go there? Patrick?
Both, you look at whether the list of uses generally or most likely makes sense. You look at the location of the lot, you look at the size of the lot, you look at pretty much everything about the lot. Does it make sense given the uses allowed in the general business district, generally?
Okay, basically a retail business was in that building in the past. In industrial zoning, what would prevent a retail business from being on that lot in the future with the current current zoning.
I'm not saying that some of the general business uses wouldn't work there. Some will, but all of them will not.
But that's a good question, Alyssa. How did a retail business get in there when it was, that was okay, I guess?
That was before I actually owned it. I bought it in the midst of all that. The warehouse, it probably should have been rezoned back then. In fact, me and Scott, the former tenant of the building, had talked about it. We just never did anything.
But I think Alyssa's point is that you could, if that happened before, is it possible that you could have a commercial business in the current zoning? I don't know.
Retail, trade, or service is a permitted use in the
I mean, there's a lot of retail in our industrial park.
I mean, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
General business
So you could-
was, that being said, written to provide certain benefits to businesses over industrial, whether it's signage or anything else.
Ideally, you would want it rezoned, but
Ideally, it would make the most sense, but
You know, unfortunately, decades ago, city leaders thought it would be good to have an industrial park up by the interstate, not thinking that Brandon was gonna grow by leaps and bounds and eventually have its borders north of the interstate. But now it's clear that it's perfect for commercial development all along Split Rock Boulevard. But we still have all the properties are laid out for industrial. But it's clear that it's perfect land for commercial. So we have to fix it somehow.
To me, by making it general business, puts more landscaped areas addressing stormwater issues.
we plan to
Than-
do, I
than
plan to
industrial.
make it look very, very nice, because that is
Yeah.
the entrance to
Well, we have-
Brandon.
Yeah, because
With-
if it's general business, you have setbacks that can't be paved. If it's heavy industrial, you can pave up to the edge of your property. So to me, general business is gonna make it easier to accommodate stormwater than keeping it in heavy industrial where the entire parcel could be paved. So I guess I'm not sure I understand the stormwater issue. That all comes down to the design of the property and, every parcel you have, you still have to meet the requirements.
When I get to that point, I will present it to the city,
Yeah.
of course, with building permits and all that.
Of course, on the off chance, whatever business you decide to put there would be acceptable in industrial, maybe you wouldn't need a zoning change.
Good question.
But
And
you can, you're available to a wider base of possible people by having a general business. Am I correct? Is that true or no?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Yeah.
I would assume you would be correct, but
Yeah.
do you have a comment?
I guess I don't understand the uses that are allowed in light industrial, or heavy industrial. Just retail, but if it's all of this. But generally, yes, general business would be more attractive for somebody trying to come in and be in the city.
Well, and I hear, we need to lean on our staff for their expertise. However, I will say that I have no offense to Pastor who is just here, but I have a lot of heartburn with a church going up on Redwood when we had that all set up for neighborhood business, and we could have gotten sales tax, and now we get nothing. So we don't get property tax either. Yeah. So that's really unfortunate. So I appreciate your trying.
don't have any objection to making this commercial. I think all along Split Rock needs to be, up on the street needs to be commercial. And we have a lot of things on, like you mentioned, on Redwood and along Split Rock too. We have a lot of properties that are on prime commercial land and they're not using it that way. So I hate to mess up another chance for commercial property. On the other hand, as Tammy mentioned, there would be a lot of extra cost and red tape or whatever to go through. And I wonder if maybe it would be a good idea to table this a little bit until you know better what you think might go in there.
I appreciate your comment. I don't know that I care to spend a lot of time, effort, and money in the unknown. So, obviously, if we were to try to find a bigger tenant or a national tenant, so to say, because that's really what I was hoping for someday maybe on that property, but whether that happens is yet to be unknown. There's a lot of expense with that because, number one, they're not just going to say, yeah, we want your property. We want to know that they can get on that property, and then there's a lot of lawyers and different talk back and forth before you would even come to a site plan.
If I could just add, I did receive a call of a company doing their due diligence on this lot. I did let them know my concerns, which is why I did look into the design standards on different items. And I did tell them that I don't think that this is a feasible lot for them. So I understand the wanting more commercial and they're wanting the rezone, but I have a pretty good idea of what they want to put in there and what company it is that's looking at this, and it's not gonna work.
That's one of a few.
But I don't know that that's our decision to make, Tammy. If they're willing to follow the rules and take on the financial risk, I think that's their choice, not ours, as long as we stick to our guns and say, this is what has to be done. I don't think that's our place.
Well, it is your place to look at the uses and make sure that it's the best fit for those uses. There are uses in general business that doesn't work on this lot. Heavy industrial, they do. And if they're doing the retail type uses, they can still do that in industrial. They don't need the general business to do those. The ones that I'm concerned with are the ones that don't work under general business.
But isn't that,
What you're telling us, they work under heavy industrial.
Yes.
I will tell you that Tammy had a discussion with my realtor that I'm working with, and her main concern to him was the access point. That it's not 300 feet back, which I don't have. Either way. Because if we stick with heavy industrial, let's just say that we do put a manufacturing thing there, and I think you'd agree that a semi backing in there, because there was access to a semi before, there was a semi door there, blocking that whole road for a matter of a semi getting in or out is not going to be easy. So if you limit me to that,
To back semis in and out of park properties, because it's a very unsafe situation.
right? So I mean that's a thought. It's unfortunate that
My personal opinion on this, the one thing I don't like about coming into any town is driving by a bunch of tin buildings. And the last thing I'd like to see is another tin building go up on our main entrance from the interstate into the center of our town. And that could happen in a heavy industrial, so.
probably will happen.
It
To be
will, yeah,
truthfully honest.
because people wanna maximize their profits, so if we force somebody to keep this heavy industrial, do we wanna see another Morton building going up on our main street in our town? I do not. I know we don't have those kinds of design standards, but I personally do not wanna see that for Brandon.
And industrial doesn't generate sales tax like retail does. And I think it's not a good idea for the city to leave prime commercial land, is to not tap into it.
And I've been here. Absolutely. And I've been here 10 years. I've had a business in town. I have different properties in town. I try to follow the rules. I don't think I've ever not followed the rules. You can answer that. I want to work with the city. I don't want to work against the city.
I maybe ask this, but, so, if you leave it heavy industrial, what can't he put in there that you can put in general business?
What's our correct term for that, Patrick? The fast food restaurants,
Quick service establishment.
that's what cannot go there. They're
It-
not gonna meet the design requirements for that to go there.
It would they would all fall under the retail service or trade. It would, where it would come down to whether it works or not are the design standards.
Stay heavy industrial, just say, they could come then to that lot. Fast food,
No.
if it went to general business, they could come. Okay, that's all I want, that's what I
Is it
want.
because of the drive-through or just because of the number of cars it would have?
You know, it's both. It's mostly concerns with the number of cars because they're all coming at one time. There's just not enough room for that stacking. Now, if they have a real small building and they can wrap those cars in 2 lanes all the way around the building and then enter that way, and we have a median that's a right in, right out, you know, sure, there's ways about that. But are they really going to want to tear up Aspen Bowl or Ash Street to make that work? Plus, retime our traffic signals, and there's just
Isn't
a
there
lot
a
that goes
traffic
into
signal
it.
plan for that intersection anyway?
Yes.
Thought so.
Which is the concern from the DOT, that if we have an access point too close to it, we have to redo timing, plus we have that access of everyone turning left into there from Brandon. So, that is one of my lessons learned. I'll never do that again. And just because I made a mistake on one does not mean that I repeat mistakes. And when we redo Heritage there, we will remove that access location. We just went through the same thing with another business that wants to build. We have to meet access standards.
But I still have to have access.
Yes, and I'm not saying that we're taking away your access.
Because where the access is today, I mean, I don't know what the plans will look like in the future, but ultimately where the access is today is right across from the coffee cups.
And you will not to get a site plan approved with an access in that location.
But I still have to have access,
Yep.
which, okay, we push it down to the end of the lot, which is
And
where the only place I could put it.
And you might still be required to put in a median or have a right in, right out. There will be additional requirements and restrictions on it.
How would I, on the main road?
On Ash Street, yes.
How,
Yes.
Again, as.
because ultimately, like, if you look at the old building there, that's about the only place we really could put a building back if we were to. How would I have access with a semi and stuff for industrial? You're basically cutting my knees on that property, if that's the case. And it wasn't my fault that there was a fire in that building, unfortunately. I was very happy with getting my rent that I was getting until it did not happen.
I think, as you mentioned, Barb, that, that, it's the property owner and the developer's responsibility to conform to whatever requirements that the city requires. We can't predict the future of who might go in there, and he will know what will work and what won't as he tries to acquire businesses to come in there. And so, I mean, he's requesting this and he's willing to, well, the only thing I would hate to happen is that if we if the city would rezone, and then you get a client who wants something, and then you need this or that, and then you would come back and ask for 2, 3 variances, and, you know, it could happen that our answer would be, you knew about this ahead of time,
Right.
you know, and I'm, you know, not trying to say, well,
No,
you,
no,
but,
no, you,
but you know, how how it works, how the things work. So I would hate for that to happen, but otherwise, you know, it's the landowner's risk, and if that's what he wants to try to do, and there are no regulations against it, the rezoning, I mean, maybe it'll work out for him, and maybe it won't. And maybe he'll come back and ask for it to go back to industrial.
you see me in a year.
Well, you never know.
So,
I just think this would give me a better option for different
Yeah,
tenants than what I have at the present moment.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm after.
yeah.
so if we're switching, if this would get switched to general business, you're saying Ash Street pretty much will have a divider on it, or a boulevard or in the middle. No matter if any general business.
How would that affect the gas station across the street then with their semis coming in and out?
Exactly. It is gonna affect them. I'm just asking you to look at the general business uses, cause I'm telling you that some of them will not work on this lot.
Some
And the
of them.
ones that could are covered under industrial, such as,
It's not for us to say what will and won't work on a parcel. That's up to the landowner, how they develop it.
no, but it is the uses. And some of
But
those, and I'm
there are
telling you,
some
some
that,
of those
right,
uses are not gonna work.
there's some that will work in general. There's some that won't work in general. There's some that will work in heavy industrial. There's some that won't work in heavy industrial. It's not for us to say, you can't do heavy industrial because this use might, you can't put up a wind tower factory, because that ain't gonna fit. That's not our, it's not us to tell them what they can and can't put on that property. But I think
Yeah,
everybody up
there-
here agrees that is prime general business and the best thing for Brandon to make that a retail type corridor.
That would be my vision.
Unfortunately, I was around when that became industrial and there was nothing else up there but cornfields. Things have changed.
And I do think it's similar to what you're saying. I think based on the size of the parcel and the location and what's going on around it, there's gonna be certain challenges to developing it at the present zoning or at the requested zoning. And, yeah, either way, there'll be some, some careful design and some, conversations with city staff and figuring out what will work, and I guess in the state of South Dakota, being that it's a state highway, so it's, yeah, interesting.
the other part to think is, if it goes general business, and then they put a lot of money into the engineering, just for me to turn around and tell them no. There is no variance process for access locations. If there is a fast food restaurant that comes here and they give me a site plan, I'm going to tell them no because they cannot meet access requirements. Just so everybody's
Still have to
very
give me
aware of that.
access. At some point, you have to give me access. No matter what. Because I don't have access to the back lot. I did try to buy it. Unfortunately, Frank and I could not come to an agreed upon price.
I will not approve a site plan that does not have an access that meets design standards.
said you have to allow access.
State of South Dakota
For
says you
certain
cannot landlock a parcel, because I'm dealing with that on another property.
So the parcel's not landlocked.
Right,
They can
so
build something else there. They will have to
can you
find a
tell me
different
what that
use.
would be?
You would have to find a different use.
Tell me what I could build there to fit on the lot, that would really
Look-
make sense.
Look at your uses under heavy industrial. That's what you can build there.
I understand. But quite frankly, like, I could have just rebuilt the big 10,000 square foot building there, but I just didn't think that made sense. And I could have kept exactly what we had, which would have been more problem than what we're probably dealing with right here. Because that parking lot that's up front is fairly big, and that was a 10,000 square foot building. There's lots of different retail people that could have gone in there. However,
And they-
I would prefer to work with the city and maybe make some changes to make it look better and nicer and in a better fashion.
I still don't think it's this board's place to determine what's gonna go there. I think that's gonna be a discussion between you and the city engineer. I think we're getting into the weeds here
Agreed.
for us. And I don't have a vote, so I'm not the boss here, but I just think that that's not our place. So I would ask for either further discussion or a motion one way or the other. We've heard the concerns of the engineer, and I appreciate that, Tammy. We've heard the concerns of the owner. What does the commission want to do?
I've mentioned this already, but I think Split Rock is not the best place for heavy industrial. I think Split Rock is better suited for business. And as mentioned, whatever he puts in is gonna have to meet the requirements. Whether it's heavy industrial, whether it's general business, whether it's residential, doesn't matter what goes in there, it's gotta meet the requirements, just like any other development does. Based on that, I think it's better suited to the city of Brandon as a business than it is a heavy industrial. So I'll make a motion to approve.
It's recommending, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
This would
I will
ultimately go to
second
the
it.
city council.
I am Alyssa.
All right, further discussion from anybody else? Okay, understanding that there will be, you're very clear that, yeah,
This is a pretty detailed conversation,
Yeah.
absolutely, I think it's pretty crystal clear.
okay.
Thank you for the question.
All right, just so everybody's on the same page. All right, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, let's do a roll call, Paul.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that will be forwarded to city council where, it can be discussed, staff can discuss it with city council and 4-1. Yeah. Yeah. It'd be forwarded to city council.
Forwarded to is what she.
Yeah, forwarded, forwarded, oh, no, I'm going, what? No, forwarded to city council for further discussion. Okay. All right, okay, sorry about that, guys. Okay, all right, thank you all for your discussion items. Patrick,
So the city has been approached by a company that constructs tower structures for wireless telecommunications. This company constructs the tower and then they lease space to carriers. So they are looking at a site that is north of the two schools down near the state park and near Robert Bennis and the other school. So it's on a lot owned by Alliance. There are a couple of current issues with our code and the lot that they are interested if you would be willing to work through a solution. The first one is this lot is zoned NRC. You can have one use per lot in NRC. Alliance currently owns that lot and they have a build there. I would assume it would probably be classified as a public utility facility. But the next issue is a wireless tower itself is neither a permitted or conditional use, so you would have to add that use. The third is NRC has its own setback, so the tower would have to meet not only just the general setback for an NRC lot, but then there's the fourth requirement that it can't be within 300 feet of a residential, and it would be. So those are kind of the issues, and so I believe there's a rep here to talk about it.
Come
So-
on up. Sorry to make you wait all this time. Okay, if you just give us your name and address, please.
Yeah, I'm Jonas Snyder. I live in Sioux Falls, 5313 South Eastwind Avenue, and Elevated Towers is a business based out of Sioux Falls.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so we're a business that builds cell phone towers. We're specifically mostly around South Dakota and in the Midwest, and we look to work with the carriers who we have a relationship with to help densify coverage and also fill in white spaces. Here in South Brandon, you guys currently have a single cell phone tower on the north side of town on North 9th Avenue. It was built in 1998, as I understand it, and has all three of the major carriers on it, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. And we are proposing to build a tower on the south side of town. And Verizon has been working to get a tower on the south side of town for 3 years now, unsuccessfully. And so being the local development company, we kind of took our best stab at trying to find an appropriate lot. Unfortunately, there's really no lots. Towers aren't permitted on either residential or NRC land, as I understand the zoning code. And so we have been unsuccessful at finding a lot that would meet all of the code requirements. But we do feel like the lot that Alliance Communications owns is a perfect lot for it. As you guys probably know, they're an internet provider here, and they run fiber around Brandon and surrounding area. And so we're right next to that public utility, and this is essentially another communications use, although admittedly towers don't, as I understand it, qualify as a public utility, at least not yet. So this is, I think the objective of this tower would be to cover that south side of Brandon, which currently it's just too dense for the single tower. Like I said, that was built in the 90s. You guys have grown a lot. I think something like 11,000 people in Brandon. And for just some comparison, T and Harrisburg, similar size, I think maybe even a little smaller, both have several towers. Harrisburg has 3 towers now already. So you guys are a little bit behind some of our other comparable small communities from a coverage and density standpoint. So I recognize we're asking kind of a lot, like Patrick outlined, for some adjustments here, but wanted to just get the commission's thoughts on it and answer any questions.
So you said our ordinance doesn't allow, none of our ordinances allow such a thing? Is that what you said?
So cell towers would be permitted in the industrial districts, but so they are permitted places. This particular lot, wireless telecommunications tower or whatever the term we would use in there, is neither a permitted or a conditional use currently. Correct.
Okay, and you said Verizon's been trying to get in for 3 years unsuccessfully. What was the problem?
So we first have worked at trying to go on the Huset Speedway property. It's outside of Brandon city limits and would qualify with Minnehaha County. They're just not interested in having a tower, and so we were unsuccessful there. Going further south of Brandon, towers have a pretty high bar from an archaeological standpoint, and the Native American tribes are able to make comment and essentially sort of veto a tower being built. And as I understand it, some of the land of the south has some historically significant, I don't know exactly what, but so that wouldn't be approved. Burial grounds. Okay. So there's no opportunity further south. We're unable to go east, and as you get further away, the tower becomes less and less effective, essentially.
Is this a 5G?
It would. Essentially, all towers nationally now have 5G on them. Yeah.
What happened when we spent all this time going through the 5G that was going to be installed on city installed light poles? We spent several meetings addressing that.
We did.
just sat through a webinar with smart cities that talked just about that. I feel like that's probably coming, but it's not in the near future around our area yet.
Really, the only